Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Democratic strategist Melissa DeRosa. Melissa, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Brittany.
We are in the final stretch here, less than 20 days from Election Day. And in a historic first since she became a politician, Vice President Kamala Harris did sit down with Fox News. She sat down with us, Brett Baer, in a somewhat contentious interview at times. What are your thoughts?
I think it was absolutely the right thing to do. I wish she had been doing more of that earlier. I think that she is someone who's at her best, and we saw it in the debate where I think she performed very well, where she's actually able to show different dimensions of she is, where she can show her policy chops and where she can show her prosecutorial skills in argumenting and sticking up for her points. And I think that the campaign did her a great disservice by sort of waiting until this point to trot her out to do things like this. I think that they work to her advantage. So better late than never, or time will tell. But I think it was the right move for her, even though I do think it's important to recognize why she was doing it, which is that in poll after poll, we see that she's underperforming with African American men and with Hispanics. And so this is sort of, she's lurching around looking for pockets of votes. And that's why you saw her go out and say she wants to have a bipartisan council of advisors. She put a Republican in the cabinet. She's on Fox News. She's trying to reach for soft Trump support or those last undecideds who maybe lean right and trying to pull them into her camp to make up for what we're lacking in our base support.
Let's talk about who she's reaching first. Let's talk about Democrats. So let's say, I mean, you are a Democrat, but let's say you were deciding, do I like Harris? Do I know enough about her? Am I either choosing the couch or Harris? You watched that Fox News interview. What are you thinking?
And a lot of people did, right? What were the numbers? It was around 5 million people watched that interview.
And it blew the Trump town hall earlier on Fox out of the water in terms of viewers.
Which also tells you there is a deep interest in trying to figure out who she is, which is good and bad. On the one hand, people that tuned in could have walked away from that interview saying to themselves, she did what she needed to do. I really didn't feel good about Trump, and she's given me a reason to vote for her. Or there's a lot of people who watched her for the first time and felt like she's all the things that Donald Trump's been trying to define her as. But I think, she's trying to reach for the center. And while a lot of liberals and progressives try to peg Fox News as far right leaning, the reality is a lot of independent voters make up their viewership. So she's trying to reach for the center and anything that she can do. And I think, you're seeing her finally have a schedule that sort of reflects where we are in the calendar and the urgency of the polling being so close, running around Wisconsin, multiple events in Michigan, deploying the Obamas next week. And so in this last 2.5 week stretch, you're really seeing her throw everything she's got into it and, acting like the stakes are what they are, which is they couldn't be more important.
If you were scrolling on X, formerly known as Twitter, as we all know, the night of the Fox News interview, and depending on who you follow, you got various reactions to that interview. It was either a big success for her, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, kudos to Brett Baer, and she totally flopped. But let's say you're an undecided voter. Let's say you're Nikki Haley Republican, where you're not sold on Trump, but you could be swayed to Kamala's camp. What are you thinking? Do you think she closed with those voters?
I don't think she necessarily closed with them, but I don't think she turned them off either. So I think that sort of put her on their radar screen more, let them see her, one-on-one in an unfriendly environment or what was believed to be an unfriendly environment, hold her own. I don't know that she won people over, but I think she kept them in the conversation, at least them giving her another look, which at this stage is just as important for her in getting over the finish line.
And I mean, timing, how much time is there for another look? We are less than 3 weeks out. So between now and November 5th, what do you want to see from the Harris campaign to really close with these voters, to reach those people that might be deciding between her and the couch, her and Trump, her and a third party?
She's got to do two things, right? Her closing argument has to be why I, Kamala Harris, am better for you and your family. Because first and foremost, that's what Americans care about, right? Elections are about you. It's not about the other person. So why am I better for you? And then why is Donald Trump dangerous? Why is he unhinged? Why can we not go back to a Trump presidency? And so she's got to walk and chew gum. And that's where you're going to see the advertisements come into play. I expect there's going to be a full tilt negative on the advertisements. And then she's got to be out making her positive case while also saying why you cannot look yourself in the mirror if you go and vote for this man or if you sit at home. You know, we've got to play against the protest votes too. And so she's got to go out and do it multiple times a day in these swing state markets, be on the front pages of those local papers. And then, as she did this week, get on big platforms like Fox News, where you're reaching millions of people across the country and saying, hey, there's still time. I'm here. Get to know who I am. Feel comfortable voting for me, especially over that guy.
I've been hearing from Democrats that they're getting a lot of flashbacks to 2016 as we sit here right now. And as we know, Hillary Clinton did make a misstep by calling Trump voters deplorables. How does Harris learn from the deplorables mistake while still telling people, hey, my message is you can't vote for this guy?
You know, because I don't think you need to insult pockets of people while you're talking about Donald Trump himself. I think that Donald Trump does a good enough job sort of disqualifying Donald Trump on his own. And so I think showing ads where it's in his own words, where he's at rallies and saying things about going after his enemies and vendettas and January 6th, where, you know, showing images of January 6th and then, you know, him saying that these people are January 6th hostages and prisoners and sort of he does the work for you. So you don't need to attack a pocket of voters who may be more conservative leaning, maybe more oriented, you know, towards Trump while making the case for why Trump is not best for 51% of this country. We don't have to win 75% here. We just have to win, you know, 51% in a handful of swing states in order to get home. And so you can do that without actively offending the other side.
The Al Smith dinner was last night. Trump was there. He was cracking jokes. Some critics said some were distasteful, others were laughing. At one point, I did see Chuck Schumer, who was sitting right next to him, laughing. Uh, Vice President Kamala Harris didn't go. She sent in a video with Molly Shannon, reprising her role as Mary Catherine Gallagher. Do you think that was a missed opportunity on Vice President Harris's part?
You know, look, I'm someone who's grown up going to the Al Smith dinner. I think the Al Smith dinner is something that is incredibly important for tradition, for bipartisanship. I thought it was nice actually seeing Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump have a couple of jocular moments there where you did see Chuck crack a smile. And yes, Donald Trump did say things that I think, you know, were a little bit over the line or frankly weren't very funny. But it's about the tradition and showing up for the church and Catholic charities. And they always schedule it this close to the election because they want to make a point of saying we are one nation and you can put two candidates in the same room who on every other day are running against each other and everyone be here for a more important cause and show unity. And so look, I thought it was a mistake for her not to go. Her video obviously fell completely flat. She did not have friends in the room. I think she offended the church. I think she offended a lot of the people who, you know, stand up for that event and tradition, generally speaking. That said, it's a real insider event, right? The tickets are astronomically expensive. The people that go, the only way you know about this is what you read in the media. It's like the insider of insider events. So I don't think it hurt her necessarily, but I personally like the tradition of that dinner and that evening. And I thought it was a missed opportunity for her to show people who she is and win over a different group.
As we sit here right now, the polls are showing a real tight race. I mean, it's razor thin, it's anyone's race. And I was talking to his pollster earlier this week, and he said he still believes that Harris still has the momentum, but Trump has the advantage based on what he was seeing in battleground states with Trump's numbers. Right now, less than 3 weeks out, would you rather be in a spot where you have the momentum or where you have the advantage?
The momentum. But that being said, I don't know that Kamala Harris has the momentum. I mean, if you look at the polls, when you're seeing the trend lines, what you're actually seeing is Donald Trump, going in the right direction and her sort of plateauing or dipping down a little bit. And so I'm not sure it's accurate to say that she has the momentum and he has the advantage. I think that this election is going to be a jump ball. I think on election night, the results could be called within an hour where 7 swing states fall by 1 or 2 points in one way or the other. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if either of those situations happens and she cleans up the electoral college or he cleans up the electoral college. We could also be waiting a week counting individual ballots. I think that this race could not be closer. I'm not sure one person has the advantage. I think that she has the structural advantage in terms of she's got $1 billion, she's got boots on the ground. Their field operation is unlike any I've ever seen before in terms of a paid operation in those critical 7 states. And for whatever reason, he seems to be, gaining some more steam, at least if you believe the polls. And the problem with polling this close out is not necessarily what they jack people winner. And specifically with Donald Trump, there is a permission structure involved. There are certain people who feel like, can I vote for him? Will my colleagues look down upon me? Will my family look down upon me? Is it okay? And when you see that he's winning or gaining speed in some of these states, you feel, oh, I'm not alone. Other people are supportive of him, so it's okay. So voters are very much a groupthink populace. And that's why the polling is important. And I would argue that based on the polling, he appears to have the momentum, which is a dangerous place to be at this stage in the game.
He does have $1 billion, according to reports. All eyes are focused on those 7 battleground states. So, what do you think the Harris campaign needs to be doing? What do you want to see between now and election day to, because you are a Democratic strategist, what do you want to see to see that she ensures a win?
I have been disappointed for the last several weeks in how her campaign has been running itself. She spent a lot of time in DC. I felt like she spent a lot of time down. And she finally this week seems to have gotten the memo. And I think what they are finally doing right now is exactly what they need to do for the next 2.5 weeks. Multiple events a day. I mean, I looked at her schedule today. She's not starting until 4. She didn't, start until late afternoon. So I would say start the day earlier, but she should be doing multiple events a day in person. She's got the Obamas going out with her next week. Keep it up with Bill Clinton. Send Joe Biden into pockets of Pennsylvania where he's very popular, but she's just got to run to the finish line. And that's all you can do at this point. Her schedule should be jam-packed. She should have no time off, not even a second. And in between those events, she needs to be doing podcasts. She needs to be doing interviews, radio, TV that are speaking to those tens of thousands of votes in those 7 states and appealing to them, not just against Donald Trump, not just why he doesn't work. This isn't 2020. It's not just a referendum on Donald Trump. Why are you good for them? And talking about her economic message and talking about the future of the country. And right now, she seems to be doing it. She's doing it in the last couple of days. She needs to keep it up for the next, 2 weeks.
So you're essentially saying leave it all on the field the next 18 or
Yep.
so days for sure. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on, breaking it down with me, and I hope to speak with you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me.